Wholesale Hotline, where we cover everything to do with wholesale real estate. I'm Jamil Damji.
I'm Brent Daniels.
And I am Pace Morby.
And together we cover the most important parts of wholesale real estate.
Lead generation.
Conversion of sellers into contracts.
And dispositions. Guys, remember when you're watching this show, do us a favor and squad up in the comments.
Make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channels and in the Facebook group Wholesale Hotline.
Most important, we want to know we're doing a great job for you and helping you build your business. So go give us a review on iTunes and or Spotify.
So squad up and enjoy the show.
Wholesale Hotline 124, Pace Morby, Brent Daniels. We're missing Jamil today, but we will do our best to soldier on. You know, Pace, this marks exactly 2 years worth of Wholesale Hotline.
Damn, 2 years today?
Over. No, that would be 104. 120. My math is way off.
104. It would be 104.
Yeah.
What episode is this today?
124. So we're
Oh
20
my
over
gosh.
2 years.
We're well over 2 years, dog.
We are over 2 years. It has been exciting sharing this stage with you each and every Monday and with Jamil. And we're excited, guys. We're excited. There's a ton of opportunity out there, ton to talk about. And we're going to really open this up to a lot of questions and answers going on. And Pace, let me just open up with a question to you, okay? $5.2 trillion. $5.2 trillion was basically all paid for during the pandemic, right? $5.2 trillion. What do you think that is doing to our real estate business? How does that trickle down to us as wholesalers, as people that go out there and find discounted properties?
One thing I can tell you is that there is more equity in people's properties than there has ever been in history.
11 trillion in tappable equity.
Humongous. I was talking to Ken McElroy this morning before he went and did his live. He did a great live today talking about rent rates during the 2008 crash. What happened to rental rates in 2008? Because everybody's like, oh my gosh, the market's got to crash. And so Ken McElroy, who runs all the multifamily business for Robert Kiyosaki, was talking about that exact thing. It's so weird that you brought that up today.
Yep.
There's never been more equity, untapped equity ever in the history of American real estate than before now. It's huge.
It's huge. 11 trillion in tappable equity. But what I'm talking about is 5.2 trillion in payouts over
Meaning
the last
that
2 years.
Our government paid $5.2 trillion and they printed money and just gave it away.
Correct.
So you're asking, what do you think what's happening with that money?
Yeah. How do you think that has affected us now, mid 2022?
I know for sure that it's completely put kerosene on inflation because people are out buying shit. Also, people would be doing a lot of cash out refis. I was talking to my wife the other day about like, where is all this money coming from? And what's happening is appreciation's gone crazy. Inflation's gone crazy. People are pulling equity out of their houses, or at least a good portion. They're not pulling 100% cash out refis. They're probably doing 70% loan to value type of loans. And they're pulling out tons of money. People are spending. And inflation's gone crazy. Absolutely freaking crazy. And so that means money for us. A lot of money for us. For anybody that's been holding properties, you've made millions of dollars in the last couple of years just sitting on shit. That's been amazing. For fix and flippers, I can tell you that I think this ride is temporarily halted, but fix and flippers for us, it got to a point where we could buy a house at like 90 cents on the dollar and even have a big rehab and still walk out 6 months later with $50,000 net in our pocket.
Yep.
But that's ending. With interest rates are going to really kind of slow that down a little bit. I wouldn't say it's ending, but you definitely are not going to be able to plan on appreciation going on during your fix and flip for 3 months, right? But man, everybody's made money in real estate. In the last couple of years, everybody's made money in real estate. And I think what is going to happen, and I don't know where you're going with this necessarily, but I know you always have a button that you would like to button up. But what I really am looking forward to are the people who lack consistency will not make it in this market. And all of us that, let's say I'm doing 12 deals a month in a slower economy, or let's say in a little bit of a recession. It's not like we're having a crash. We're having a little bit of a taper and a slowdown. People would assume there's deals are not happening. No. I will do more deals in this upcoming market than I did in the amazing economic situation. So, good example of that, little bit off topic, but still kind of the tail end of your topic. I went and met with a seller today. I don't meet with sellers often, but I met with a seller today who sold 2 properties to me today. Not one, 2. 0% seller finance. And they're worried about the market. So like, oh my gosh, I need to hurry and get the number that I really need. I need this number. I absolutely need this number. And so I'm seeing that right now. Our team is seeing that in the marketplace right now. Sellers are starting to see the news and see what's going on, which is great because they have a lot of equity, but now the sellers' minds and they're very strong positioned. Like, I'm digging my heels in the sand. I'm not going to negotiate. Also, hedge funds have changed their business model in the last 30 days dramatically. So we have a unbelievable amount of pressure off of us if you're a fix and flipper or you're a wholesaler, depending on how you look at it. Because there's wholesalers that have literally relied on hedge funds for the last 18 to 24 months as a main business model. And now when you got to go back to the buyer pool, it's like you're recreating your whole buyer pool all over again because you kind of got to dig. I know a couple of people here in town, that's all they did for 2 years was sell to hedge funds.
Hold on. Yeah, there is. I put together, Pace, a cash buyer ladder. I'm going to see if Matt can pull this up.
I want to see this ladder
because I think that you're gonna love this. I really do. But the fact is, when $5.2 million gets dumped into the system, that's the bank $1 trillion gets dumped into the system. The bank, what the government does to hedge against inflation is they start pulling that money back. They start stockpiling that, and that's called interest rates. Okay. It's called, they start raising the interest rates, which means more money goes back to the central bank from all of the different banks that are lending out money. I don't care what it is, whether it be car loans, whether it be credit cards, whether it be mortgages, whether it be whatever it is, whatever kind of debt, the government is going to hoover up some cash so that there's not as much supply out there to really protect the value of the dollar. Let me show you this cash buyer ladder here, Pace.
I freaking love it when TTP gives us presentations.
Okay. I don't know if we could go full screen. There we go. All right. So there's ARV. And this is the hierarchy of the ladder of where you can potentially sell or where you could sell these properties for over the last year, even into this year. Number one at the top is a creative financing deal, and we'll get into that pace where you wrap up a really good deal. It's got good cash flow, and you can sell that out, and you could get over 100% of the actual value for that property because people are looking more at the metrics based on the cash flow than they are on the price. That's number one. Number two was hedge fund. Well, you can kind of scratch that out now. They're really tightening down. They're really kind of putting things on pause. If you're building your business based on this, it's not going to be very sound. It's not going to be a really strong foundation to build it on because once they're gone, they'll stop and they're cold. They're absolutely guiltless about this. They'll just shut you down. Next is somebody that wants to buy it to actually live in these properties. Believe it or not, you can reach out to a bunch of different real estate agents or even buyers in your area that want to be in a specific neighborhood. There's no listings there, so they'll buy it cash, put the money into it, fix it up, do whatever, and live in those properties. Next would be a value add property.
On the hedge fund, hedge fund side, you made a good comment. I just want to hit on that real quick. There's 2 people in town that I had conversations with that specifically both BOTH, both of them lost over $300,000 in earnest money deposits.
Yep.
Because what they were doing is they were locking up properties, trusting these hedge funds were going to close on them, going hard on their EMD of $10,000 and sometimes $20,000. And they got abandoned. The hedge funds came in and go, we're canceling all 12 of these contracts.
Yep.
And their earnest money is gone. They literally lost probably a quarter's worth of net profit on waiting for hedge funds and counting on that business model. And they're now having to scramble to go back and rebuild their business. So that's what you meant by they can just pull the plug at any point.
Yeah, they're heartless, Pace. It's all a metric. It's all an email that gets passed down from somebody in corporate that says cancel all the current deals that we have and give away the earnest money. You know what I mean? Or if they're even tied into earnest money, they just do a pause on buying, and that really throws off a lot of people that were making an absolute fortune. Value add properties. These are properties that you add in addition to the property, and it's worth a lot more. It costs you $150 a square foot to build. You could sell it for $400 once it's done. So there's enough built-in margin there for it to make sense. Airbnbs were going wild, right, Pace? Airbnbs were just out. I mean, they were just going absolutely bananas. But as interest rates increase, and as regulations increase on where you can have Airbnbs, that model is slipping away as well. You got rental portfolios, interest rates increase, it affects cash flow. Burr is like, I mean, there's not a lot of burrs going on right now, or at least new ones that are just signing up because of interest rates.
The only burrs that are going on are the ones that the burr educators are forcing to happen, so they have content to talk about.
That's right. And
I love how you spelled burr the way I spell burr. Okay, there's people in the side chat that are like, wait, is it with 3 R's or 4 R's? So guys, BRRR. So buy, rehab, rent, refinance.
Yep.
And most people will say repeat.
Right.
As a 4th burr. In fact, I get a lot of people that make fun of me because I don't put a 4th R on there. And the reason I don't put a 4th R on there is because you can't repeat with the same money, because it's very, very rare for you to be able to pull your money out. We do the burr. Last year we did 20. This year I'll probably do 4. Okay. And the reason I'm doing 4 is because I had to cancel a lot of deals and go back and renegotiate, because it's heavily contingent upon interest rates. It entirely rests upon people giving you money multiple times. In fact, you get 2 loans on one house to do one deal. 2 loans, not one. 2 loans. You got fix and flippers, and then you got other wholesalers that you sell to. They have a big database they're going to build in. There's enough meat on the bone for them to build in and sell to one of their cash buyer lender. Who am I missing here, Pace? Short sell.
Who am I missing?
Short sellers.
Wholesaling short sales?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got guys that it's like, even if there's no equity in the deal, you can still get a deal done because it's the foreclosure situations are like going to be super crazy coming up. So I think short sell people are going to be able to pay a little bit more, not pay a little bit more. You're going to be able to get a lot of short sells done in this upcoming market.
Now, what I'm saying is this is who, as wholesalers, we sell our deals to.
You're saying, I understand that. I totally get that. But for me, the way I look at a short sell is I'm not the buyer. I just send it over to a short sell negotiator, and I send it over to them, and I get a fee. So to me, in my mind, they are my buyer, even though I know they're not the buyer. They're the person negotiating. That would be the only one that I would see you're missing.
I'm just looking at all the deals that we've done in wholesale and all the different strategies of where they're at. And if you look at that list one more time, let's pop it up one more time. I would say almost all of them are on pause right now when it comes to buying wholesale deals. And this is what people need to understand and need to get back to the basics of finding ugly houses. Guys, you got to find ugly houses. This whole market of getting things at 90 to 95% of ARV and selling it, Steve Trang did had a great analogy, Pace. He said back in 2008, 2009, you just needed a pulse to get a mortgage, right? In the last 3 years of wholesaling, you just needed to have a property and you could sell it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now we have to have skills.
Yeah.
Now we need to be able to speak with sellers and pre-qualify them and follow up with them and not be drawn into these negotiating battles with other wholesalers or other people out there that are less informed, that are not going to be able to complete that transaction because there's not going to be a buyer at the end of the road for them to buy these properties that we were used to selling. It's just a fact.
I agree.
What do you think?
I agree. I was in an appointment today.
Yep.
I woke up this morning at 2 a.m. Not normal. Usually I'm between 3 and 4. I wake up at 2. I'm out the door at 2:20, and I take my son up to Zion National Park, drop him off on my way back to Phoenix. So that's like 7-hour one way. I turn around and I go and meet with the seller in Payson on my way back. Okay?
Yeah.
I sit down with her and her husband, record the conversation. So of course I'll be releasing that. And we lock up 2 houses from that same couple, 0% seller finance. We're going to keep those in the portfolio. They'll cash flow like crazy. But they used to be real estate agents and real estate fix and flippers. They actually used to buy from wholesalers. So they knew what wholesaling was, which was great. And they talked about their neighborhood alone, how there had been vacant properties in their neighborhood over 7 years, just sitting there. He's like, why doesn't anybody do anything about these properties? And I'm like, because people's lives have been too easy the last couple of years. They're going after the low hanging fruit. What is going to happen is the skills that people are going to have to work on are really deep diving on who the owners of these properties are and going, oh, instead of saying, oh, this house is vacant, I guess I'm not going to talk to the seller. You've really got to cross-reference. You got to not only skip trace the husband, but also the wife. You got to go to their social media, deep dive on their social media. You got to be deep diving and getting down to the nitty gritty and focusing on those people. I'm telling you, like I've gone around the country this last year and people will tell me their strategies and they go, well, if I can't get a hold of them, we just push them to the side. We just focus on these ones, locking up deals. I'm like, this market is going to go to people that understand the basics of deep diving on ugly ass properties that are vacant, foreclosed on, or falling apart.
Lead generation, conversion, and exit strategy. Keep it very, very simple. Your lead generation has to be going towards these ugly houses like it was in 16, 17, 18, 19. I mean, it's just, it's been incredible pace. And you know what? If I were to go back and look at my business in 2016 and the properties that we're getting in the competition or the collaboration or the overall, the overall attitude of the market, was phenomenal. I mean, I have no fears of what's going on here, of the hedge funds, tightening up, of fix and flippers. You know what's going to be real interesting here, Pace, is the real investors are going to stick around and they're going to crush it. You know what I mean? Everybody else is going to run and be scared. And the real investors that you have to build real relationships with and treat them right are going to stick around. And that's what's going to be really, really important.
I'll tell you a
finding
secret.
The people.
I'm going to tell you a secret. In the last 2 years, we've probably sold 2 deals to hedge fund buyers. It was never something we focused on. I didn't care about it and it never ignited my passion. I knew people were killing it and locking up deals at retail or near retail. And that was a great business model. We never deviated from what we were doing back in 2018. Never deviated from 2019. We're still doing the same shit, going after high pain points, ugly houses. That's it. And build your cash buyer database. Build it. Continue to build it. Continue to build with new people into your cash buyer database and have really good conversations and understand what they're looking for. Let's take a look at Ingrid here. I have a great answer for that. I was just texting Ingrid. She's sitting there in Cabo San Lucas right now.
Beautiful.
I'm buying a sub 2 deal from her on the west side. She's great. She's been doing a great job. She actually has made more money from her wholesale job than she has from her 9-to-5 job. And this girl makes like surgeon money. Like she makes crazy good money. She did a great job in the last 12 months. So guys, if you're trying to network with somebody, Ingrid Hernandez is somebody to definitely network with. She's an up and coming superstar in the business. I foresee her standing on stage. We need more women on stages, by the way. So Ingrid has a question. What is your take on oversaturated rental properties being available? This is really interesting because I look at the data and there is no oversaturation of rental properties. In fact, again, talking to Ken McElroy, okay, check this out. Ken told a story on his live today where he says, I have a 400 unit apartment complex in Mesa, Arizona. Nothing highly desirable. It's not class A. It's not really even class B plus, just kind of a regular ass, multifamily deal. He has a special favor that he calls the property manager and he goes, this is the owner of the building. I have a friend of mine has a son that needs a place to stay. And he's a gold medal winner, like a very top-notch person. I need to get a room for him. And she's like, I'm sorry, Ken. We don't have any openings at all. He's like, out of 400 plus units, you don't have a single opening. She's like, actually, the next opening is August, and it's one of our few 1 bedrooms, which wouldn't work for him from what you're saying. I'm sorry. He's going to have to wait 6 months to get into an apartment complex. This is an affordable one. Okay. All the other ones that Ken owns are all luxury. They're overbooked. There's lines of people waiting to get into apartment complexes right now. So that's multifamily. On the single family side, guys, I own a lot of single family rentals. We have a line of people before we even put it out there ready to list or ready to rent. I get DMs from people all the time. Can't find something to rent. Can't find something to rent. I don't know. Now she's okay. There are 2,722. I love this. I was just going to ask her this. What are the what's the data? There are 2,722 active rental listings. This is up 15% on last month and 97% on the same date last year. Okay, great. That's not oversaturation, Ingrid. That is normalization. That's coming back to where it should be, because the rent rates have gone up 25 and 30% on some of my rentals in the last year. I have a rental that we had somebody in for a year. They were renting for $1,500. We just got them out. We raised the rent to $2,100 in 1 year. So added $600, and there's a line of like 30 applicants.
Yep.
The rental listings were so underserved that rent rates were going through the roof. I hope we have some normalization, but I would not say it's oversaturation at all. That's an exaggeration.
I would wonder how much of that is the hedge funds that have bought these properties over the last year, fix them up, and finally put them on the market. We'll see. But I will tell you this, Ingrid, so I live at Camelback and Central. It's like a central location in Phoenix. And Pace, within the mile block of my house, right? Yeah. All the way down to Indian School, up Camelback, there is, and they've got this approved, 3,000 new apartment units and high rises being built and developed over the next 6 years. 3,000.
Yeah.
3,000 in one block. If you drive anywhere in town, you're going to see a lot of construction going on. And I think that's common in a lot of major markets.
I think you actually become numb to it. We travel a lot, right? You become numb to it. A couple of years ago, we were seeing them sprout up like, wow, this is crazy. This is crazy how much multifamily is being built. I've become numb to it. Then I had a mastermind student came in from this week, and we were driving around town, went to the TV set last week, and we're driving through town. He's like, dude, there's literally like 30 apartment buildings being built between your house and where set was 20 miles away. They're popping up everywhere. Yep. And the thing is, we should have Ken McElroy on here.
Let's do it.
Ken McElroy is the largest apartment builder west of the Mississippi.
Love it.
He has amazing data. The guy has 6 analysts that work for him full time. Okay. The conversation he has is he says, before we even break ground on an apartment complex, we've already filled the apartment with applications. So we got a year and a half long wait, right? People that are maybe renting close by, or they're rooming with somebody, are like, great, something's available close to my work. It is a dramatically underserved market, believe it or not.
So what do you think, Pace? When you guys are wholesaling, when you're selling some of your deals that you don't want to keep, who are the buyers that you're talking to? What's going on? And by the way, for everybody asking, Jamil is, where is he? In California? He's
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't know where he's in. He was in California over the weekend, but I haven't talked to him in like 4 days.
So he's just not feeling well. So send up some good energy for Jamil to feel better tomorrow or as soon as possible, and we'll rock and roll.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing with your buyers? What are you seeing with the other big time investors out there?
I have a little bit different strategy. I have the same 25 buyers. I've had the same 25 buyers almost my whole career here, local in Arizona. I text them. I go on, they're members at my country club. I call them. Hey, we got a deal. Hey, we got a deal. Hey, we got a deal. Frank. Okay. I got one buyer that does the outskirts, weird areas. Frank.
Yep.
He'll drive all over town. We've been selling to him for 5 years. Okay. We'll go play golf with him once a year, keep our relationship strong with him. He'll even bug us like, hey, I've got 3 more. I could take 3 more properties, right? That's our relationship with our buyers. We have 25 solid buyers. I don't remember the last time we actually sent out an email to a list. Now, from the moment I met you, Brent,
yep,
I've always had a different strategy than most people in terms of my buyers. In fact, you when you first met me, you were like, you're letting these people make so much money off of you. But I haven't had to worry about it. And I'm doing okay. I just saw my net worth statement for the first time, literally the first time in my life. I finally saw my net worth statement that's completely accurate about 30 days ago. And I was like, I'm doing fine. My buyers are the same 25 buyers I can rely on. And if I can't rely on them, I will text Jamil or I'll text a handful of people. I'll text Jeremy on your team and go, hey, can you sell a deal for me? But I've really focused on the same 25 buyers my whole wholesaling career in Phoenix, Arizona. And really it's been 7. It's like I'll sell 7 people 5 deals each a year, and the other people maybe 2.
Right.
And then the other ones we fix and flip. We did last year, we did like 22 or 23 BRRRR deals. 5 of those came from other wholesalers. The other 15 came from our own direct to seller. And then we acquired 40 single family rentals through seller finance and subject to. Probably a good 70% of those came from direct to seller. So our direct to seller, we keep a lot of stuff. We've always kept a lot of our stuff.
That's bananas. This is for Brad here, who has to do a
you make a good point. Like earlier, you said you got to build your cash buyer database, and I know that's a better strategy for a newbie to have as many buyers as possible. And is that the right strategy to go for right now? Because you're going to have some buyers not capitalized.
I was following Jamil's. I was swimming in Jamil's wake. You know, he could sell everything because he had a huge cash buyer database. Now he's got a great relationship with all of them, but I think at some point, as you mature in this business, you need to get one of your strongest lead generations must come from referrals from real estate agents and other wholesalers and other investors that are going to continuously bring you deals because you can actually get them sold to the buyers that you have. And if you have a big, robust cash buyer database, that's how you can add an extra whatever. I mean, you know how much business Jamil does, but I mean, they've got a big team and that's their main focus. But in a small team like mine, where it's 4 people doing $2 million, you add another 500,000 from referrals, and that really adds.
That's all gravy too. There's no cost per contract, no cost per marketing, none of that stuff. It's just gravy.
So let's go to this. Because Jamil's not here, I think it'd be really interesting. How can people? Let's play this both ways, Pace, right? So let's say we're part-time, or we just don't have a big, healthy, heavy bank account. We want to wholesale deals to get that 10, 20, 30K that we find, but we're also finding opportunities that are creative financing and some sub 2 that we're able to lock up. And we're not really in a position where we want to add it to our portfolio because we want to get out of our 9 to 5. We want to get some money coming in. How do people go on these appointments and be able to find these sub 2 or creative deals, and then also wholesale them so that they can get the income coming in? Because I think this is going to be a big factor coming up.
Okay, so there's 26 exit strategies with creative finance. There's 1 exit strategy with cash.
Right.
1.
Yeah.
It's wholesale it, right? And with creative finance, you can do a plethora of things depending on your situation. Actually, the biggest factor in creative finance is the person that's working out the deal with the seller and their resources. Right.
Yeah, but just play with me, Pace. Just play with me and just say somebody. So you're talking to somebody that needs cash now.
Yeah, I literally was just about to go into it.
All right.
So let's say that I'm brand new. the first thing you should not be doing is acquiring. It's the same thing with when you're trying to first get into this business. I don't think you should be fixing and flipping. I think the first thing you should be doing is wholesaling, both cash and creative.
Yep.
Now, if you're smart, what you should be doing is wholesaling to a fix and flipper and asking them to walk you through the fix and flip so that at some point in 6 months, you can be acclimated to that environment and what it looks like to be on a job site, but stick to wholesaling. Okay. So with creative finance, you are going to be able to wholesale things. I've bought deals from TTP students, 10% over retail. And they've made a $30,000 assignment fee. I'm paying somebody right now. I know this is going to blow somebody's mind and it's going to alienate a newbie. I'm paying somebody a $200,000 assignment fee right now on a seller finance multifamily deal. It's their first deal. So when people say, "Oh, don't learn creative finance," guys, good luck not learning creative finance.
Let's ring this bell for that. Whoever's making that 200,000 and for yourself, because I assume it's an incredible deal. Here we go.
It's an incredible deal. That one deal will wipe out probably 50% of my taxes for the year, which is great. So, but assigning a seller finance, assigning a subject to deal, assigning a novation agreement, assigning a lease option are great ways to get started. And this is our KPIs. If I go generate 50 leads, okay, 50 motivated sellers, people that have price, timeline, really, honestly, it's not even price. For us, it's motivation and timeline are the two most important. You talk about this all the time. I love the other two, but the main two are timeline and motivation. If I can get those, okay, if I can get those two things, what will happen is that I really don't care what the purchase price is. I care who my buyer is. Okay. I know this is crazy. I know somebody's brand new is like, wait, how is that possible? Well, let's do some math. We started this off with some math. 100 people right now walk into Bank of America to get a loan.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are going to get rejected? Forget about interest rates, just people's credit, their credit worthiness, their W-2, their 1090, whatever the situation is. They walk into a bank to get a traditional mortgage. How many people out of 100 actually get approved? It's less than 40%. Okay. Less than 40% of people are getting approved with traditional mortgages. And that equates to nearly 10,000 transactions per month just in Maricopa County. Think about that. That 10,000 purchases that are happening on the MLS equates to 40% of people looking to buy a house. The other 60% don't know that it's a real thing. So wholesalers like me can lock up a sub 2 or a seller finance deal. Like those two deals I bought today, they're neighboring properties.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I was not ready to put them in my portfolio, I could literally assign them to an end buyer. I could assign those to an end buyer on the MLS. Go on the MLS right now. If you go on the MLS right now in any market, there are seller finance opportunities on the MLS in every single market.
Yep.
So you can sell these on the MLS. You can sell them on Craigslist. You can sell them on Facebook. You can sell them through your email marketing. You will make more money assigning creative finance deals in this economic depression over the next, this economic downturn over the next 36 months than you will on cash. And the reason being is because buyers have been alienated or kept from being able to buy a home for their family. Okay. Our population growth we will grow 5 million people in this country this year. 5 million people this year will be added to our population. That's massive. That is freaking massive. So there's buyers in every market. And what happens is seller finance subject to gives these buyers an opportunity to buy houses without credit, without credentials. They just need to have their down payment. Okay. And their down payment pays your assignment fee. Their down payment a lot of times pays for the cost to get into the deal with the seller. So if you're just starting out, this is our KPI. I generate 50 leads, and the national average, not my team, I'm telling you the national average. The national average is that you will generate 50 qualified leads, and the typical brand new investor will close one of those 50 leads. Okay. cash.
Yep.
Utilizing assignments of subject to or seller finance, you will now be able to close 2 more deals out of the same 50 leads. So assigning creative finance deals will triple your income and triple your conversion rate, not just in the upcoming market, but my students are doing it all over the country all the time. Okay. So assigning sub 2 and seller finance deals is an absolute requirement for you to double, triple, and excel in this market for sure.
And I think it's important to note, a lead is somebody that has made the decision they want to sell the property.
Correct.
Right? When you said the 50 leads. So you have to talk to a bunch of people or do a bunch of whatever outreach or marketing or whatever it is to get those 50 people that actually want to sell in a specific timeline, right? You had talked about timeline and motivation. I would say that if they've already made that decision, I think this is very important for everybody out there that's just getting started. You can have a really good quality conversation with somebody, but if they haven't made the decision that they're going to sell, or they're just like, how much will you give me? Or what do you think it's worth? Or maybe I'm thinking about it. Why don't you just send me over an offer in the mail and I'll keep it, that type of thing. Typically that's not going to work out and you're just wasting your time. So make sure that you understand, is this an actual lead? Is this somebody that has mentally made the decision that they're going to sign a document that's going to transfer their title from this property, their ownership for this property, to somebody else? Okay. So go ahead. So you got 2 leads. You get 1 deal out of 50 leads. You got 2 deals out of 50 leads. How are people finding Pace? How are people finding what are they doing for lead generation for these, to get more of these leads? Because leads are great, but you got to talk to 200 people to get 20 leads. It's about 10%. So you have to talk to 500 people to get 50 leads. How are you doing that? Or is it a mix between prospecting and marketing?
Okay. So the first question is, how are you going after creative finance deals specifically?
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm asking 2 more questions. What happens is, in the process of a wholesaler talking to a seller, they say, well, what's your price? And the seller says, here's my astronomical price, right? They say Zillow price.
Yep.
And due to their lack of understanding, they don't know to ask the question of, oh, okay, well, we typically don't pay Zillow price, right? We've got to have some meat on the bone. But we do have another department in our company that buys properties nearly at full retail, but they would need to get them on terms. Are you aware of what terms are? And if the seller says no, well, then I train my people to tell the F-150 story. I told it yesterday. It's how I locked up these 2 deals. I tell that story all the time to get people to understand what seller finance and subject to is.
Yeah.
And then what you need to do is transfer it to somebody who knows how to talk to somebody about creative finance. You will find, if you went into your lead flow right now, I could go to anybody's CRM anywhere in the country. I could make a full-time business by just going into people's CRMs and pulling out leads from 30, 60, 90, all the way up to 180 days ago that you said the seller wanted too much money. The seller wanted too much money. So for example, the deals that we got today, the seller wanted full retail. Well, guys, I paid her full retail. But guess what? I'm not coming out of pocket any money. I'm paying for closing costs. And I'm putting them in my portfolio. They'll make a lot of money. But guess what? I'm getting 0% interest. So there's doctors, lawyers, all these people that are out there buying properties. And there's like we should Google this. Medium Wave Dave, Google how many landlords are in the United States. I don't know how many how many?
19 million.
19 million people are out there buying properties for either cash flow, retirement, what have you. They don't stop in a recession. They still make money as a doctor. They still have to deploy this capital. They're not putting into stocks right now. They are putting it into real estate. I get calls all the time on our creative finance buyers list, all the time. So how much would my buyers, okay, if they went down to this same seller and paid the Zillow price, which is what a lot of these knuckleheads do. They go to a real estate agent, these buyers. This is what's interesting about basic knowledge about this business. is that wholesalers don't actually know what the hell your buyer does with the property. You don't know what your buyer is doing with the property. You don't know what your customer is doing with the property. They're either buying and holding it or they're fixing and flipping it. And if they're buying and holding it, you should understand why they're buying and holding it by having a friendly conversation. What's your strategy? What are you doing? Because that's a future person you're going to collaborate with when you are ready to own it in your portfolio. So here's what happens. They go down to their real estate agent. Hey, I need to find a property to deploy capital in and, get my depreciation, get my tax benefits. I got to deploy cash. That's doctors, lawyers, all these engineers, everybody's got money. So what happens is real estate agent pulls up what's available on the MLS. They go, okay, well, I like that deal. They go put 30% down and they obtain a loan. 30% down on, let's say, a $400,000 house. They're putting $120,000 down and they're getting a loan at 5 and 6%. Right now, it's going to go up to 7 or 8% by the end of July because the Fed's meeting again in July.
Yep.
That's a typical buyer right now. A typical buyer who needs to deploy capital and buy, look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of rentals that are being purchased right now in Maricopa County, regardless of interest rates. People are still buying properties to put into their portfolio. Look at the data. It's 30% down, 6.5% interest. How much would that same buyer pay me as an assignment fee if I gave them that same house with nothing down and 0% interest to that seller?
Yeah, I love it. Listen, whenever we're negotiating, you're negotiating on price or terms. Sometimes both.
Sometimes both.
Listen, I'll pay $1 million for any house as long as I can pay $1 a month.
That's it. So
until it's paid off.
If you understand that logic,
right?
If you understand the logic that your buyer would have paid 5.5 to 7.5% interest on that same property and put $120,000 down to get the benefit they're looking for, how much would they pay you if you could get them 2% interest or 3% interest with 5% down?
Yep.
Your assignment fee is astronomical because their goal is to hold these properties for 5 to 15 years. Roll them into something bigger. Roll them into something bigger. That is the model. If you understand that as a wholesaler, very bare necessities, you understand that your cash buyers are not just fixing and flipping. They are holding these properties and they are obtaining loans with 30% down payment. So the only difference between my lead generation and other people's lead generation is a few questions of, are you okay? Are you open to terms? Sellers don't know what terms are. It opens up an opportunity to then say, would you mind if I pass you to another department? And then I have somebody on the team or, maybe a sub-2 student then explains what terms are. And you're now having that conversation with 50 people. Okay. So out of 50 people, you get one deal on cash. Yep. Make $15,000 to $20,000 is kind of the national average. Then you go and talk to those same 49 people about terms. You're going to get 2 more deals out of that and make another $10,000 to $15,000 per assignment on each one of those. You're going to triple your income by asking a few questions and then passing it on and JVing it with somebody.
Tell me if I'm a crazy person here. Okay. I pull up an address on my phone on Zillow, right? Mm-hmm. It shows me the rental estimate. Yeah. In my mind go, okay, I can give this seller 60% of this number and it'll be a good deal. Is that fair? Is that crazy? Am I just, am I too conservative? Am I too aggressive? I just know
you're talking about in terms of a monthly payment to the seller.
Well, yeah, because once you go into terms, now we're talking terms, right? Are you open to terms? Sure. I'm open to terms. I can give you $250,000 for this, but I got to pay you whatever 60% of Zillow is, or the Zestimate is. Is that a fair way to kind of throw something out? You know how we throw 60% of
No, I don't do that model either. When everybody talks about that model, I'm anti that model. For me personally, that's not my style. I don't like that style. Again, I go to my buyer and I say, what are you willing to pay? My buyer says here, and we reverse engineer. We've never locked up a property without having a buyer give us a number before we get the contract. I've never.
Isn't that a bottleneck in your business though?
No, I'm not trying to be Carlos Reyes with 55 employees in my business. I've got 6 people that work for me. I'm not trying to do 50 contracts.
You're essentially working for the cash buyer.
No. Well, yeah, I am, of course. And so are you. Yeah. As a wholesaler, you're working for the cash buyer, but what am I really trying to accomplish? Wholesale is a gateway into wealth. Nobody, I'm going to mark my words and guarantee my left testicle on this. Nobody will ever retire from wholesaling. Ever.
Right.
It's impossible for you to gain financial freedom through wholesale alone, unless you are one of the very few 1% of wholesalers who can automate a business and step away from it. And I know a few of them. One of them's on the screen, Mr. Brent Daniels.
Yeah.
Most real estate investors use wholesaling to then start buying properties with the excess cash they earn from said wholesaling.
Right.
And that's why wholesaling is so powerful, is because it provides so much extra cash in your business that you can be a real estate investor and you can start stacking slowly one property. What I tell people is you should for every 10 deals you wholesale, you should be adding one deal to your portfolio.
Okay. So get back to the Zestimate. So you don't go.
No, hell no. I look at
that.
highest and best use. I look
Okay.
at Rentometer. I pay $200 a year. Rentometer is way more accurate than the Zestimate, but I understand what you're saying. It's just an example. I look at the Zestimate and I then go to the seller and I go, okay, what's the highest and best use of this property? Okay. Is the highest and best use of this property a lease option? Is it a wrap? Because a lot of times what will happen is, and this is, I know we're getting to the weeds on exit strategies because some people on here don't know what a wrap is, but I can typically justify an extra $300 a month in my rent rate. It's not a rent technically in a wrap, by utilizing seller finance. So I buy a deal subject to or seller finance, or heaven forbid, I buy something cash. I would never do that. But if I bought something, I control it for a day, I wrap it with my own terms and I sell it to my buyer. My buyer is going to be the new owner of that property and typically pay $300 per month more than they would have if they were renting. So I look at those things before I submit an offer to a seller.
So
Always.
The one that you went to today, you knew all that?
Yep, we knew all that. I knew all of that going into it, 100%.
So how do people pre-qualify so they know going into this how to do that?
Rentometer. I go to Rentometer as my rental rate.
Yep.
I go to AirDNA if I'm going to look at it from a short-term rental, or there's a couple of other really great websites that do that as well. Yeah. And then I look at like Furnished Finder and other people that are doing that. And I look at it myself. I then qualify. Like Noah Hoffman, every time I look at a Airbnb, I look at my own numbers. I then send it to somebody to verify, because there's nothing worse in my business than generating lead after lead after lead and hoping that my numbers were 100% accurate just to find out I missed something. Guys, even at my level, I verify with my friends. I verify with my buyers. I verify with people I'm collaborating with, or I verify with my property management company. Here locally, we have a company called OnQ Property Management. Okay. So we go to Rentometer, which I pay for. And then before we finalize the contract, we email OnQ Property Management, who manages over 100 doors for us. And we go, what are you seeing in this area for rent rates? And they come back with actual properties they are actually renting out and managing, not some Zestimate or a Rentometer. And that either kills my deal sometimes or gives me an amplified position to now go and negotiate. But I would never go, that's not my style. My style is not to go off of Zestimate, Zillow, or any of that kind of stuff on my comps. I always go to my buyer or a credible source so I know. And it's just the way that I train myself. That's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just the style that I prefer. And
yep.
So what I always do is if I can't break even on a rent rate, okay, I won't touch it.
Right.
I won't touch it.
Break even meaning what?
So like your example is Zestimate, right? So your Zestimate is $1,600 rent rate.
So I talked to Jared Vidalis, right? I had him on the show, and he says he looks at everything. He goes 60% of what rent is, 40% set aside for all the miscellaneous, vacancy rate, management, repair costs, all those things, right? He takes 40% off the top. If it makes sense, then he's going to add it to his portfolio. That was it. Listen, guys, this is not my world. I'm just trying to like peel this from pace so that we can all have this as an advantage when we go out there in the coming, 6, 12, whatever. Who knows what's going to go on with interest rates. It says it's going to go up. It might not. It might just flatten out and everybody gets used to it. And then we're rock and rolling again. Who knows? But let's just assume that it's going up. you're looking at this deal. You got Rentometer. You've got your property manager. They're telling you what it'll rent for. You're factoring in
40% sounds like a very Jared Vidalis answer. Just FYI, 40%. Right. Are you half of your rent goes to your costs?
Yeah,
half. National average is less than 15% total.
15% for off the top.
So forget about PITI, right? Okay, so you're talking about vacancy, repairs, all of that kind of stuff. That's 15% is the average. Some people in bad neighborhoods are allocating 20% to the side. And in really good neighborhoods, like on a lease or on a lease option, or even if my exit strategy is a wrap, on a wrap, you allocate less than 1% for CapEx. Less than 1%. So these things are incredibly important for you, for the audience to understand, is that if I'm going to take a deal down subject to our seller finance, even at full retail, I'm going to turn on and wrap that. Guess what? I'm not responsible for the taxes. I'm not responsible for the toilets. I'm not responsible for the trash. That's the buyer's responsibility. So what would be the point of allocating 40%, let alone 20 or even 5% to something like that? You have to, again, you start. Always, always, always start. I don't care what anybody says. They can fight me in an alley. Jared Vidalis would win, by the way. But you start with the highest and best use. The highest and best use could be a wrap, could be a lease option, could be a short-term Airbnb. You don't go to Rentometer first. You think about this and go, okay, what is the highest and best use? Is it right off of a freeway? Is it right by a movie theater? Is it right by this, that, or the other? Okay, this is probably a short-term rental. Let's find the highest and best use. And you start there. That's where you start.
And highest and best use meaning who are you going to get money from this property?
Who's going to be my buyer, right? Or if I'm going to buy it, what would I
this is I guess there's a distinction here that needs to be made of the end buyer buying it from you or you keeping it in your own portfolio. Right? So if do
you want me to only focus on wholesale so the audience doesn't get confused with the two?
Yeah, I mean, if you're locking up a creative deal and it has to be juicy enough for your end buyer to look at this and say this is a good deal.
Let's look at this. So then the next thing I look at, forget about cap rate. Okay? People that use the word cap rate should be kicked in the balls. Okay? The traditional real estate investor that's trying to get into this business, when they hear the word cap rate, they immediately go, this business is too challenging for me. Because you go on YouTube and you'll hear 15 different definitions and it sounds like they all sound like they know what they're talking about, but nobody's on the same page of what the hell cap rate even means.
I totally agree.
It's horrible. Okay?
Yeah.
So especially when multifamily people that are really intelligent come down to single family and start using the word cap rate in single family, guys, get the hell out of here. It's cash on cash return. What does a single family buyer always look for? They want cash on cash return. Just like you guys look at stocks or bonds or anything else. I put $1 in and 12 months later, how much money do I get back? That's your cash on cash return. So for example, if I put $100,000 into a property and at the end of the year, I net $12,000, I got a 12% cash on cash return. Yep. Forget about the purchase price. Forget about the rent rate. What is my cash on cash return? So you're trying to put it, this is why creative finance dominates, is because your down payments are so minuscule that your cash on cash return is maximized.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for is a baseline of 12%. My average cash on cash return on my creative finance deals, I would say, is north of 40%. North of 40%. Cash
so if
on
somebody
cash.
wanted to wholesale you a deal and you buy it as that buyer, you're looking for 12% cash on cash.
I know the average buyer is looking for 12%. I wouldn't touch 12%.
Okay.
I'm buying a deal right now with Ingrid. Ironically, her and I are doing a deal. My cash on cash return on that deal will be over 40%.
Love it.
In this market at full retail.
Now, is that how other buyers are looking at this? So
look at Brandon Turner.
Everybody lock it
right?
Up. Huh?
One of the biggest authority in all of our industry is Bigger Pockets. Who is the biggest host of Bigger Pockets for 8 years? Brandon Turner. What's his target of cash on cash return? 12%. What if you look in all the forums on Bigger Pockets? What's everybody's target? 12%. cash on cash return. Forget about the 1% rent rule. Forget about all that stuff. People want a cash on cash return.
I love it.
That's it. Keep it simple. I put in 10 grand. At the end of the year, if I got $1,200 back in my pocket, I got a 12% cash on cash return. That's baseline. And so here's a good example. If I go buy a deal, okay, I won't pull up my whiteboard because then I got to monopolize the screen. But if I go buy a deal, let's talk about what I'm doing right now. Something that's kind of average. Okay, so I've got a deal with Ingrid. I'm not looking at the purchase price necessarily. Yeah, of course, I don't want to buy anything over the ARV. I stay underneath ARV. I'm not buying well over retail. While there are some stories that people go, oh my gosh, Pace is paying over retail. No, I'm not. Very rarely will I pay over retail, but I do it when I'm getting 1% or 0% seller finance. Of course, I'll pay over retail.
And you let everybody know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like you're hiding them.
Right. So here's what ends up happening. I'm going to put all in on the deal. Ingrid's getting $2 grand for helping put the deal together for somebody else that's not a student. The person's getting $8,000. By this way, this is at full retail. So a wholesaler's getting paid $8 grand on a deal he otherwise couldn't make happen. Ingrid's getting paid $2 grand. Seller's getting $10 grand. Closing costs are $2,500. The property needs about $2,500 in little cleanup stuff. It's already been recently renovated. So awesome. I'm all into this deal. Less than $20,000. Okay. For a 40% cash on cash return, how much money do I need at the end of the year in my pocket? I need a cash on cash return every single month of about $700 a month.
Right. You need $8 grand.
Need $8 grand.
And it's by the way, it's 8 to 10, 25, it's 25 grand, but you'll probably make 9 grand, 10 grand to get that 40% this year.
Right. Now, here's how I look at that. I'm turning that into a short-term rental. Okay. My net cash flow on that deal is probably $900 a month net. It's just a Buckeye little deal out there, right? It's over by the Cardinal Stadium. It's a good spot for an Airbnb. Worst case scenario, if I turn that back into just turn into a rental, because for some reason an HOA, which there is no HOA there, but some reason Airbnb kills me, that property as a rental by itself will bring me a 12% plus cash on cash return. Worst case scenario. Got it. That's it. Awesome. That's all anybody looks at. And when you really sit down and talk to people who are actual landlords, that are the Mon Pa landlords, not Jared Vidalis, who is out there negotiating all day long, he's typically a way more savvy investor. Most investors are like, hey, I flipped. I made $75,000. I'm going to take 30 grand of that. I'm going to put it into my rentals to offset my taxes that I made from my fixing and flipping. That's the average buyer. The average buyer is a guy out there fixing and flipping. He might be a doctor in his full-time job. Guys, this is why you need to know your buyers. I know what my buyers ate for lunch last week. I'm on their Instagram. We're DMing each other. I know when they do a deal, they go make $120,000 on a fix and flip that we sold them. Now, guess what they have? They have $120,000 tax liability that they have to go and deploy $50,000 of it to the IRS or $50,000 into a rental to offset that gain. So where are they going to go? They're going to come to me and they're going to either do the BRRRR, they're going to buy a subject to or a seller finance deal, primarily just so they don't pay taxes. Yeah. And in that process, if they can get a 12% cash on cash return, that hits all the marks for them. They're not Jared Vidalis going out there running a massive operation. He's probably one of the smartest people you'll ever meet in your life. That's not your average buyer that's buying from you.
So can you go into these conversations? I just want to give people tactics here. Can you go into these conversations and say, what kind of cash on cash return are you looking for?
Yes, that's a great question. So you always ask what kind of
cash buyers. I mean, you said you have to know what they're buying, or do they speak that language? Or are they saying, well, I want 1% or 2% or, the whole, you know what I mean?
I don't know. There's probably 4 markets in the entire United States that 1% rule actually works. It's an outdated model. It's a YouTube video that went crazy. Right. Then multiple other people went and created. Guys, the 1%
How many times you get asked though?
I stopped asking. People stopped. They learned. Don't ask me that question. I'll karate chop you. The 1% model doesn't typically work. It's not a great basis. The only thing you care about at the end of the day, guys, is what is my cash on cash return. That's it. And so, yes, your buyers speak that language. They know they put money in. They want money out, right? That they're buying cash flow. Okay. Yeah. You'll hear cash buyers all the time say, I'm not buying a house. I'm buying cash flow all the time. All my buyers all use that same terminology. None of them use the word cap rate. None of them use the word cap rate. The only people who use cap rate are brokers in multifamily and syndicators in multifamily. Those are the only two people who use cap rate. Okay.
Agreed.
Highly, highly intelligent people that you're not wholesaling deals with right now. Okay. In a couple of years, it's okay to have those conversations. But right now, your buyers for creative finance deals are looking for a cash on cash return, minimum 12%. So here's what happens. People go, Pace, I got a great seller finance deal. The seller wants 50% down. I already know that's not a good deal.
Yep.
Why?
That's a lot of the MLS deals too are like that.
We've actually we're buying another Jerry Norton's brother's selling us another deal at 20% down, but it's going to be hopefully a house that Cody lives in. But it's a property that Cody couldn't normally get a loan on. So yes, there's those types of deals on the MLS, and you're 100% right. Those are not good deals unless you're a homeowner moving into the property.
Sure.
Okay. So all I look at is my cash on cash return. If I put in 20 grand, I expect $2,400 net at the end of the year. That's it. That's all I'm looking for. And when I say net, that means after all of the expenses, all of the vacancy, all of the repairs, the PITI, and even what I call a war chest allocation, right? Or same thing, CapEx, right? Capital expenditures.
Yep.
So that's it. I want a baseline of 12%. My average is 40%. And the reason being, why is mine so high? Because my down payments are so low and my exit strategies are so high. So the better you get at negotiating down payments with sellers, the higher the cash on cash return is going to be. And the higher your assignment will be. So this is where your assignment comes in. When I am buying a deal from one of my students or anybody in the country, I always say, what's my total cost to get into the deal? I call that an entry fee. And there's 7 parts to that entry fee. So if I'm a buyer, there's 7 parts to an entry fee. How much is the seller getting? And by the way, in creative finance, we actually ask these questions. All these wholesalers trying to hide shit. When you're in creative finance, you have to show this stuff. You want to know why? Because that's the only thing I'm bringing money in for.
Yep.
I'm not going and obtaining a loan for the rest of it. The seller is seller financing it. So I need to know all of this. How much is the seller getting is number 1, seller cash to seller. Number 2, are there arrears or liens I have to pay off? Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, what's your assignment fee? I need to know that. And I don't negotiate it. I need to know it. And I need to differentiate it between you and the seller. Because guess what? As the buyer, I have to have a relationship with that seller after you leave. I need to know what your assignment fee is, and I'm happy to pay it. Number 4, what are my closing costs? I had somebody in Vegas, the first time I ever did a Vegas deal. I go, what are my closing costs in Vegas? And they're like, oh, like $1,500. Dude, there was $6,200. That makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. Know the closing costs of the deal going through title. Number 5, what are the renovation? Just give me a gut check. I don't need you to be down to the penny. It's between 15 and 20 grand. Perfect. I can do the rest on my own, but I just, that's helpful. And I go through and I add all of these things up. So number 6 is what I call runway money. For a couple of months, that property is going to be vacant, and I've got to get it up and going for Airbnb or whatever my exit strategy is. So I've got item 6 is my runway money, couple of months of vacant payments.
Yep.
I got to make payments. And then number 7, what's it going to take for me to get a tenant in there? Why do I need to know that entry fee? Because if I'm a buyer, I either have to A, pull that money out of a retirement account, typically, or out of my fix and flip funds. I need to know that dollar amount. 2, I might have to go and bring on a financial partner, whether that's from a private money lender or actually partnering. That's number 3, is partnering and JVing with my buyer or my private money lender. Go, hey, let's just go 50-50 on this. I brought the deal to the table. You bring the cash. If my capital partner goes, well, how much cash do we got to bring to the table to close this out, get it up and going? Like, what's the total cash? If I don't know that number, I can't figure out my cash on cash return. I need to know what I call the entry fee. So the 2 things I care about more than anything else is entry fee, which are those 7 items.
Yep.
And what is my cash on cash return based on my entry fee? And so when I sell a deal, a sub 2
this is huge, Pace. I love this. This is huge. People need to know this, especially going after and some turbulence in the market. This is going to be really huge for people to understand where to find opportunities for your cash buyers that aren't going to just be this, low discounted, ugly houses. I think that
Right.
I think it's brilliant. I love it.
I get people that come to me and they say, "Hey, I've got a great sub 2 deal," and I go, "What's my entry fee?" And they go, "Oh, it's $7,000." I go, "No, it's not. There's no way it's $7,000 because is that your assignment fee and the seller's not getting anything, and then you're paying the closing costs? Like what?
And there's no liens
And there's no liens and there's
and
no
no renovation.
renovation." And they go, "Oh, no, that's the down payment to the seller." I go, "That's not an entry fee. I'm entering into a deal as a buyer. I need to know what my total cost is so I can go to my capital partners, whether it's a brother, a sister, a cousin, Uncle Vito down the street, and go, 'Hey, Uncle Vito, this wholesaler told me my total cost, seller down payment, rears, assignment, closing costs, renovation, all these things is 30 grand. Do you want to come in and be a partner with me on this deal? Because our $30,000 investment will actually net us $7,000 at the end of the year, which gives us roughly a 27% cash on cash return.'" That is the easiest way to look at it. How much money do I have to put into it to get it operational? And then take the amount of money I'll make on a monthly basis, and you come up with your cash on cash return. That's how buyers make a decision. And if my cash on cash return is 7%, you're going to get no assignment fee. You ain't doing shit for that buyer.
Yep.
But if you can get them a 25% cash on cash return, bro, if you can get me a 40% cash on cash return, now check this out. Check this out. Great question right here. Somebody just asked me this question about that $200,000 assignment. Josh McCabe. Pace, with a $200,000 assignment deal, did that person ask for much of a fee, or did you offer it? He asked for it before it was negotiated properly. And so I said, I can pay you your $200,000 fee, but let me talk to the seller. And I structured a 0 down 4% with a 50-year note. My cash on cash return and my longevity on that deal is astronomical. And so I looked at the deal and I go, now I'm happy to pay your $200,000 assignment fee after I've owned the property for a year. And so I structure it the way I want to structure it because now I'm in control. But that wholesaler's like, seller wants $450,000 down and I want $200,000 down. I'm like, that's $600,000 down on a $3 million asset at full retail. What's my cash on cash return? He goes, I don't know. Okay. Where did the $200,000 come from? I don't know. It's a big project. I just thought, just shoot for the stars. Guys, if you're trying to sell deals and you don't know what your buyer's return are on, you're a piece of shit. I'm dead serious. You are not a professional in this real estate industry if you don't understand how much your buyer should make. You should be leaving 10% net profit for your fix and flippers. You should look at that and go, ARV 600 grand. I'm going to back out $60,000 out of their net profit before I run my numbers.
Even more now. We're going 15. We're going 15 to 20 pace.
That's professional.
Yep.
That's
well, you're not going to sell it otherwise. I mean,
no.
Call it professional. Call it just you have to do it. Necessary. We'll call it necessary because people are tight. They're just getting tighter on these. They want to make sure that if there's any more interest rate hikes, they take that into account.
Now, a couple of things I want to hit on real fast because this is a common question that happens with creative finance. Okay, I'm in the streets. I'm negotiating. I just negotiated one and recorded a 50-minute face-to-face meeting. You can hear me shuffling the phone. This literally just happened. This is not a story I'm telling you 2 years ago. This literally just happened. I'm in these streets. People will ask, wholesalers will ask, why would a seller do that? Well, first and foremost, why would a seller sell their property for cash for 50 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents on the dollar? That's a better question to me. Why the hell would a seller ever give you a 30, 40, 50% discount on a property just because you're good at negotiating?
Speed and convenience.
Convenience. They have pain and you're giving them convenience. That's the answer. And typically that question comes from lack of experience. It's the same thing with creative finance. The difference is this. With subject to, they're going through something very painful. And with seller finance, they're looking for gain. They want to win. If you listen to this meeting today, the seller says, I really like this. I really like this. I feel like I'm winning. I feel like I'm winning. Literally says this in the appointment.
Perfect.
Yeah, she's the lady I sent you a photo of that I was with today. I pull up to her house and she's watching me on YouTube. She's like, "Oh wow, this is great. I Googled you and you have a YouTube channel." So she's sitting there going through the stuff. Anyway, she's like, I told her I'd want her to come on Wholesale Hotline.
You're like, I have a TV show too.
Yeah. So why do sellers sell to you on seller finance or subject to? So I just went to San Angelo, Texas, and I flew out there. I spent $3,000 in flights with me and Eric, hotel accommodations, rental car to bring this video to you guys. Mario, my seller, went through 9 reasons why he's selling to me on seller finance. Here's one. He says, Pace, if I sold this property right now, I wouldn't have something to 1031 it into. And a lot of you guys don't know what that means necessarily. It means the seller is going to be taxed at a very high rate. And he goes, I don't have anything else to roll it into. There's nothing on the market, but I want to sell this. I'm 55 years old. I have a 12-year-old son. I just want to retire, which is number 2. Yeah. He wants true passive income. That's number 2. They want true passive income. And being the bank is passive income. Number 3, he got the highest purchase price with me. Mm-hmm. There's $400,000 he got extra by selling to me. Now, number 4, he's earning interest on his passive income. So for the first 8 years of this, it will be 85% interest just going to Mario every single month. Okay. And I've got 5 other unbelievable reasons that he says right to the camera. By the way, this is one of the greatest stories. This guy, his name's Mario, moved from Bulgaria to America with $60 in his pocket 35 years ago. He's 20 years old. His first real estate transaction was a subject to deal 35 years ago.
Incredible.
And he's like, I retired off sub 2 and seller finance. It took him about 7 years. Sure. And so he does this whole video talking about, yeah, cash is great and all that kind of stuff. He's like, I wholesaled for a couple of years. It was awesome. I still wholesale every once in a while. But he's like, now I'm at a point where I truly want to retire and I don't want to discount my property. Another reason, guys, no real estate agents, no appraisals, no inspections, no contingencies, no surveys. Do you guys know what you have to go through to sell a freaking multifamily property in terms of surveys? It's an insane process. I'm buying this building, Pace. It's a $2,800 appraisal. Yeah, appraisal. And how long did it take? A month?
This thing is less than I bought my house for. You know what I mean? It's going to take forever. They start tomorrow. I don't know.
Insane. So with creative finance, guys, you avoid all this stuff. And so I was DMing JJ Simmons, who doesn't watch this, I'm sure, as much as he probably did a couple years ago. He says, Pace, I watched your Bigger Pockets episode last November. Insane that you have 300 properties. I go, bro, we now have over 900 doors in our portfolio. Between November and today, we've added 600 doors in our portfolio, all of them on creative finance. I don't know another strategy you could do that in. Storage units. I had investor girl Britt from Canada, calls me up the other day. Hey, Pace, we got this storage unit, and I work out a Morby method deal. A lot of people don't know the Morby method deal, and they're like, they watch me do this. They record me do this. They're like, dude, we've been working this guy for 4 months. And in 7 minutes, you locked down a contract with this guy using a strategy we've never heard of. Guys, creative finance, I'm telling you, is absolutely going to dominate. And it has been, but you should be assigning these. You should be wholesaling these like Brent is talking about. You have to find the buyers. Now look in the side comments. If you guys are not a sub 2 student, we've got over 800 people watching right now.
Great.
If you're not a sub 2 student, then work with the sub 2 students. They're in the side chat and say, who's a sub 2 student? And all the sub 2 students in here proudly say, here I am. I'm here to help you. Here to help you. Okay. You guys should be wholesaling deals and working in JVing. I was in Jamil's mastermind 2 weeks ago, and we're talking about creative finance, and I'm going through all these high-level things, and he has this lady in the back. She's 68, 69 years old, and she goes, I just did my first deal with one of your sub 2 students. It's a sub 2 deal. My first deal, I wholesaled and made $12,000 on my first deal, assigning a sub 2 deal at full retail. Wholesaling creative finance is very easy. Even with, in my mind, there's no difference between cash and creative. I can wholesale both of them. Why wouldn't I be doing both?
I love it. And I think that these 7 steps on the entry fee are so critical to understand, so you know how to structure these deals.
Yeah, there
You
was
know
a
what I mean?
you
Seller
mentioned Adam
cash,
Brown,
liens,
right?
assignment fee, closing costs, renovation costs, runway money. What did you say, about 3 months?
Yeah, typically it depends. If it's an Airbnb, probably 3 months. If it's just a traditional rental, probably 45 days. And,
Sure.
and that runway. So I'll give you a good example for somebody that's really smart and we really like him is Stratton Brown out of Fresno, California.
He's great.
He's great. So
Mhm.
probably 3 years ago, so before I became a creative finance coach, I was doing creative finance for, well before all of that. And Stratton Brown calls me up. He's like, "Hey, I've got this deal." And I go, "Don't forget, it's a 7-part entry fee, bro." Because he goes, I go, "How are you paying for the down payment and the furniture costs and getting this thing up and going?" Because he wants to keep it in his portfolio, not assign it. He's like, "I don't want to assign this deal. I want to keep this deal." I go, "Okay." And I give him the 7 things: cash to the seller, arrears. And we're going through, and he's like, "Okay, seller wants 5 grand, no arrears. There's no assignment because I'm direct to seller on the deal." I go, "Okay, well, you got some marketing budget in there, but that's okay. I won't go into that. Cost of close of escrow, renovation cost." And we go through all that stuff. And then I get to 6 and 7, and he blanks out. So what does he do? He tells me he understands, and he goes and raises money. And 30 days later, he goes, "I'm out of money. I did something wrong on my calculation." I go, "I can already tell you what you did, because you didn't ask me a question about number 6 and 7 when I explained it to you. You just assumed you knew what I was talking about."
Yep.
When I buy a property and I own it, for a lot of people that don't understand this, you now have a responsibility of property payment, right? PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that total payment. You're responsible for that. You're also responsible for utilities, landscape maintenance, pool maintenance, pest control if you live in freaking Arizona or Florida or one of these places, right? All of these things are things you have to pay for regardless of whether a tenant is in that property or not, because now you own it. So do you want to put yourself in a situation where now you raised only enough money to clean up the property and now you got 3 months of payments while you're renovating and waiting for a tenant to move in? And now you're hemorrhaging that money? No, you raise all of that money. You raise all of it. And in fact, when I first started, this is what I told Stratton to do. Take your total entry fee, your 7 parts, right? All the way through. And your cost to market to a tenant could be $500, right? You might have to pay an agent to bring a tenant in there or whatever. Could be I always put number 7 as $500 as a baseline. But what I do, Strat, is I always add $10,000 to $20,000 to pay myself for putting the deal together. And I bring that from my private money lender. That way, I don't have to worry about the property getting up and going and living on it. I can live on the $10,000, $20,000 right out of the gate. He's like, "I can do that?" Yes, you can do that. People do it all the time. Pay yourself, and it's a loan, so it's tax-free. It's pretty amazing. So he gets all the way to his renovation. He goes, "I'm out of money." I go, "I already know why. You didn't raise money for yourself. You didn't raise money for 6, and you didn't raise money for 7. He goes, "You're right. I'm $12,000 short." But that's why it's super important for you guys to know that the total entry fee is what a buyer is going to have to pay for out of their pocket to buy a sub-2 or seller finance deal from you.
And is that, yeah, got it. Yep. Sub 2 and seller finance.
Yeah, sub-2 and seller finance. It's the same exact thing.
Yep.
And it's the same thing on cash too, right? People, they know this, but typically in a cash transaction, they look at the deal and they go, "Okay, well, I know what my hard money lender is going to give me, right? I'm going to buy a deal from Brent Daniels at 200,000. My hard money lender gives me 90% of my purchase and 90% of my renovation. So I know that I got to go raise the 10% that I'm missing from a private money lender. It's pretty simple. But in creative finance, you got to know all 7 of those things. And you got to fill in those blanks before you make a determination of what your cash on cash return is.
Guys, listen, if you are interested in learning about this, obviously check out all of Pace's material on subject 2. If you are like, I'm going to just go out there and find these deals, then squat up with somebody that has gone through and understands how to put these deals together. You're not alone out there. And I'm going through this, and in my mind, Pace, I'm like, well, listen, I'm the guy that wants to go out there, have those conversations, go get as many leads as possible, go get these big checks as much as possible. And then if there's deals that I can't do, send them over to Pace. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
whoever somebody else's pace is, you know what I mean? And say, hey, listen, is this something that you can do to make sure that people aren't, what's the minimum that I would have to get you, Pace, for you to be like, okay, let me make sure this isn't a waste of my time? Because I can see a lot of people going, oh, everything's a deal, right? Everything's a deal. And I'm
Happens
going
all
to
the
send
time.
over all these things without really pre-qualifying. Is there something that is a minimum that people need to know before sending it to one of your sub 2 students? You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
sending
So
it to you?
let's look at something just real quick, because I got a great answer for that. Let me pop this up
Love
just
it.
real quick. So if you guys don't mind, so take a look at this. If you understand, there are 6 reasons why a buyer buys a property. Okay. The 6 reasons why a buyer buys a property. Oop, I'm going to skip to number 6 right out of the gate. Damn. Okay. People do not understand this. They don't understand their buyers and what their buyers are trying to do. So number 1 is cash flow, right? That's the cash on cash return. Okay. The next reason people buy property, people in the audience are not going to understand this at a high level because they're not making enough money to really worry about this. When you get to a certain income level, the number one thing you care about is depreciation. The number one thing you care about. You couldn't give a shit about cash flow at some point. You care about depreciation. You also care about appreciation. You also care about loan pay down. This is huge. This is why I'm going down this road. Okay. Loan pay down. You also, I love buying properties because of leverage. And then I also, as an influencer, I buy properties because of the story associated with those properties. Okay. I can tell a story and explain this to people. So I buy properties. That is a major benefit to me. It really is. It helps people understand things and ends up bringing more deals to me. I will sometimes make more money on the story of a deal than I will because of the deal itself. And how is that possible? Is because I go do a deal, I record the conversation, and I explain these things to people. They go out, magically use that shit that I taught them, and they bring more deals to me. It's the most magical shit ever. I'm like, wow, people are actually taking action on this stuff. Wow. So
It's amazing what happens when you get loud.
it is amazing, dude. It is amazing. So if you go back to this loan pay down, one of the most important parts of this is if you sell me a deal at 0% seller finance, my loan is paying down every single month, 100% of my payment to that seller. That's freaking insane. So this deal that I just bought, the payment on those 2 houses, okay, there's 2 houses that we bought, and the payment to the seller is $2,500 a month. 100% for both. Yeah.
Nice.
100% of that payment of $2,500 will go and subtract every single month off that deal. I will buy that deal. I will buy that deal at 0% seller finance, even if that deal cash flow is great. Even if there's no cash flow, I will buy a 0% seller finance deal. I will. If I break even on cash flow, I will still buy it. Why? Because I'm making so much freaking money in like the invisible money, right? And so if you bring me a 0% seller finance deal, I'm going to look at it even with a 0% cash on cash return, a break even status.
But what if I'm just like, hey, Pace, I got this deal. They're open to terms. Here's the address and their number. Is that all the sub 2 people need?
That's all the people. Here's the thing: is my sub 2 students know how to talk to the sellers, right? We have thousands. We have daily dial where they get trained 4 hours every morning. They have nightly dial where they get trained 4 hours every single evening on creative finance and pitching terms and doing all of those types of things. My students are freaking killers. They're shredders. They shred up those conversations. What I'm sure they would want more, but they understand that the person bringing the lead to the table, all I care about is this seller has motivation, and I've already told them that you're going to be calling them about terms.
Okay.
If you do that for me, that's 100% of all I need you to do. Now, here's the disadvantage there. The disadvantage for you as the person bringing that to me is I'm not paying you an assignment fee because you didn't assign shit to me. I'll pay you a lead fee of maybe $1,000 because you brought me a lead I had to close, I had to follow up on, I had to negotiate with. But if you learn how to negotiate and you learn how to do all those things, dude, I'll pay you a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 assignment fee on those all the time. But what happens is people go, Pace, would you call my seller for me? I go, you don't want me to call your seller because I'm going to call the seller. I'm going to pay you $500. You learn how to have these conversations or go squat up with my students who are not as brutal about that as I am. My students are willing to pay a little bit more than that. Like there's times where people come to me and got a really great deal. They need me to call the seller and lock down the deal. I'll pay $2,500 for something that's good. But usually you're not getting a big, juicy assignment fee unless you've learned how to have that conversation, negotiate, break that down, get it under contract.
I'm
right?
just thinking maybe they learned for the first few or whatever
Yes.
else to join. You know what I mean? Like get an idea of what that conversation looks like. Or maybe they just want an extra $3-5 grand a month from passing over leads. I just, whenever I get somebody that, or even a student that's texting and is like, what should I offer here? I want to know how much do they want? Are you pulling out a price from them? Are you pre-qualifying them in any level? Or is this just somebody that wants double the value? They want 50% down and they want $10,000 a month. Like that would be a waste of somebody's time to send that over to them and see if they can like start chipping away at it. If you did it 50, 100 times a month. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you don't know any information except for, yes, I would consider terms. I feel like that would like clog up the people that know how to do these creative deals in sub 2.
I do that all the time for people, but I only do it in about 5 states. So I tell people, if I pull up my DMs right now, there's people that are asking me to call sellers every day and I do it.
Yeah.
But I always say if it's not in Arizona, Nevada, Atlanta, North Carolina, South Carolina, or Florida, I'm not going to make the call.
Yeah.
And I go work with my sub 2 students. Well, how do I find your sub 2 students? Go into Wholesale Hotline, go into Sunday Service, or go into the Creative Finance with Pace Morby Facebook group. It's free. Go in there. And people are doing, Lonza just made 350. One of my students have been with me for 2 years, just made $350,000 with somebody in that free Facebook group a couple of days ago. So that Facebook group is insane. Go find the students that are in there. They'll help you out. I'm okay with limited information.
Okay.
But what I don't want is somebody coming to the table and saying, I have a lead that I have no idea what to do with. How much will you pay me $10,000 for this? No, I'm not.
No.
But I'll teach you and I'll record the phone call and I'll pass the phone call back to you so you can watch it and learn it. In fact, if we're using StreamYard right now, if you go into the back end of StreamYard, you'll see 15 or 20 seller calls that I've made for people off my Instagram DMs. I record those, I download those and send them to people on Dropbox or on Google Drive. That's the fee that I'm paying them. I'm teaching you through doing a deal with you. And sometimes I'm just telling them, hey, this is somebody you need to follow up with in 3 months. And I suggest you work with a student of mine because I'll be really hard to get a hold of. But like for me, I get students that come to me on my Tuesday Zooms and Saturday Zooms all the time. They go, will you call this seller? My answer is always an emphatic, hell yes, I will. Right now, let's call him right now.
Right.
And I do it just to show people how the conversation works. And sometimes I'll lock up a deal and I don't care what they do with it. I'll lock up the deal, especially if it's in a market I don't buy. But we have a lot of people that can have those, not a lot. A few thousand of my 5,000 students can genuinely have a solid conversation with a seller. A lot of them are still new, 3 months, 4 months in, that I wouldn't necessarily go to and go, I can rely on you closing a deal. I would go to my students that have been in the program for probably 3 to 6 months, or students that have been in for at least a year, and go to them and go, have you helped other people close deals before? Perfect. Will you call my sellers with me? And use that as a way for you to learn how to do this.
Well, there's plenty of action in the comments, guys. Squad up. That is the point of the show. Make sure that you're squatting up and connecting with everybody that has the experience in here. You see Tristan in there. You see Carolina in there. Ingrid. I mean, you've got some incredible people. I mean, probably somebody from every single market. So make sure that you can squad up. That's
just real quick on the squad up thing. I know we're wrapping up for the day. I'm sorry this turned into a whole creative finance thing. Hopefully people got value. It looks like
I think it's important. I think it's important moving forward that people either have an avenue to be able to do these deals or know somebody that they can refer them to.
Yeah. So check it out. So Facebook user says any sub 2 students got deals in Tucson. So first and foremost, guys, there's not City, definitely not a state. There's not a city in the country that you can't find a sub-2 student that's active in less than 30 miles. We are everywhere. And so what I would do is go to the Creative Finance with Pace Morby Facebook group. It's completely free, and work with my students in that Facebook group and do deals with each other. All right.
Awesome. Guys, that is it. We are right there at our 90 minutes. Join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We go for 2 hours on the Ugly Houses Big Checks show. Pace, what do you got going on this week?
I am only promoting your show on Wednesday.
Woo! I will
be watching on Wednesday. And Jamil, is Jamil back to Straight Outta Compton or no?
I don't know. I don't know if YouTube, the issue is putting people's addresses and value and whatever else. I think YouTube's having some issues with that. So, yeah, I don't know. He'll have to let us know.
We do Sunday service every Sunday, 7 p.m. guys. We only talk creative finance, and we get an average of about 1,000 people that show up to that on a weekly basis. A lot of people come out, and I don't know what the deal is on Sunday night, why people show up at freaking 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. Medium Wave Dave shows up. He's East Coast, and he's sitting here next to me right now, and he shows up at 10 o'clock on freaking Sunday night. And I think it's because people are doing deals together in the comments and building that camaraderie, just like Wholesale Hotline. So that's really the only thing I ever have to push is Sunday service. It's all about creative finance. It's not a religious thing, unless you do want to get baptized. I will baptize you.
Love it. Love you guys. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you Wednesday. We'll see you Sunday. Love you guys.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Or just say squat up.
So squat up and enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
1, 2, 3. So squat up and enjoy the show.
What are you doing?
I didn't say that thing.
Why?